All right. Mr. Mr. Nye, how are you?
Fabulous. Good to see you, Mr.
Good to,
Mone.
good to see you as well. So we're here today to talk about this very exciting new book, Bill Nye's Great Big World of Science. There it is. There it is. I'm gonna ask Bill a bunch of questions, and we're gonna talk about the book for a little while, around 20, 25 minutes, and then we would love to get some questions from all of you out there in the audience. So feel free to ask us questions in the live chat, and we'll spend the second half of this talk answering them. Now, if
Some
you get
disclosure, everybody. Greg Mone is my co-author. He's not just narrating or moderating this. He's also helped write this book.
That's right. I forgot about that. And we'll talk about that. I also, if you get a chance to subscribe to the New York Comic Con YouTube channel for some awesome content, that would be a great idea. And we have signed copies of this book available for pre-order at the Strand bookstore. Now, Bill, on to this book. I remember we were actually doing another event for these Jack and the Geniuses books at the World Science Festival. And we're in a golf cart being driven somewhere. I'm not sure why. And you turned to me and you said, Greg, we got to do a big, giant book of science. We have to do it. You know, that's our next thing. We have to do a nonfiction book, all kinds of science in there. So tell me, you know, when you told me that, I said, wow, that sounds awesome. I was a little intimidated, but why? You know, why did you feel like we needed to write this book?
Well, let us say with this, that the same people that published Jack and the Geniuses, which I'm very proud of, that I wrote with Greg, approached me about doing a big book, and I thought it was a great idea, but I wasn't going to do it without Greg. So this is the book I've always wanted to write. No kidding. So it's a mixture, maybe mixture is not the right word. It combines thoughtful insights about science and the process of science with beautiful pictures and interviews with scientists who are working in these various fields right now. So it's a great big world of science in one big happy volume. And everybody, I think we can all agree, it's great looking. And the pictures inside are, well, they're spectacular. I mean, it's like an old encyclopedia. And the pictures are very well executed. And there's pictures of me, but there's pictures of all sorts of cool space missions and ideas in outer space and on Earth. And I think if you're home going to school right now, this is the book for you. I mean, really, if you're a family and you're stuck, you are enjoying your time together at home, this might be the thing. There's 30 home demonstrations, as I call them, where you can do home experiments and I hope learn something about the universe.
Now we'll get into some of the details of the book, all the details of the book here. But one of the things that, you know, early on in the introduction, you urge kids not to be afraid. Oh, and what do you mean by that? Why did you feel like you needed to say that?
Well, sir. People get intimidated by science, the idea of science, that there's so much knowledge out there, there's so much to understand. And you get the idea sometimes that science is for other people. It's not for you. It's for experts and not you. But science is for everybody. Science is the main idea, the main way we have learned so much about the universe. In fact, you could not have this fabulous electronic transcontinental interaction without science. And so the other thing that gets to people right now, our understanding of the universe is such that we know for certain there was a big bang. The universe was all in what we humans with our human mind would consider an infinitely small space, and then it expanded into everything we see today. I mean, keep in mind, we're in the Milky Way galaxy, 200 billion stars. There are at least that many galaxies. There's probably 2,000 billion more galaxies, all spread out, 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 out. And so you can start to feel two things. First of all, you can start to feel like you're a tiny part of this enormous whole, this enormous bigness of space, and that can really bother you. But that you can understand it, I hope, fills you with joy and reverence. And then there are a lot of people who are really troubled by any notion that we don't know everything, that science or the process of science or people doing scientific research don't know everything. Some people are really bothered by that. But don't be. We're making discoveries all the time. We're learning more about the cosmos, about the universe, and our place within it all the time. So I encourage everybody to embrace, to hug, to hold on to the wonderful mystery of everything. And I guarantee you, people reading the book now will know more about science than I and Greg ever did. It's exciting.
Now, it's funny you bring up that idea of being afraid of not knowing everything, or that we don't know everything, because, one of my favorite quotes in the book. And so just to back up a second, when we set out to write this book and we said we're going to do this big giant book of science, it was a little bit intimidating. And one of the first decisions we made was, hey, why don't, if we're going to figure out what to put in this book, why don't we ask the actual scientists? So go to a biologist and say, what needs to be in this book for kids? What needs to be in there about biology? And so we did that with every field of science, and we interviewed, 75 plus scientists?
I'd ask you. I think it was 7. You did it, man.
Yeah.
75.
Yeah. So we talked to a lot of them. And one of my favorite quotes was this young woman, an astrophysicist in the EU named Maggie Liu, who said, she loves talking to her friends about it because they all think she knows everything. And she said, no, that's the whole thing. I don't know anything. And that's what I love about studying astrophysics, is there are just so many big questions out there that are left unanswered. Now, so did you have any?
Right now, it depends which astrophysicist you talk to. We don't know what 94 or 95 or 96% of the universe is. We only know about 5% of the universe. The rest of it is a mystery. And this is where you've probably heard the expression dark energy and dark matter. And in this case, dark means we can't see it. Not only that, we can't at this point even know what it is that we can't see. It's amazing.
Yeah, now actually that brings me to another subject. I think one of the coolest parts of the book are the experiments and the demonstrations. And we have a great one in there that I won't give away that involves some mason jars and loose change. And
that is a cool one.
And it helps you understand dark matter and sort of why we know what we know about something we can't even see. So Bill, what are some of your favorite demos or experiments in the book? And I think these are a great tool for kids who are learning at home today. They're going to make a mess of your house possibly, but it's still, I think it's worth it.
This first one I'll mention doesn't make a mess of your house, really. Get a glass of water, put an ice cube in it, and fill it to the brim-be-wim-bim with water. Now you're going to let the ice cube melt, but wait, before you let it melt, I want you to try making a sketch of what it will look like after the ice cube melts. I have met countless number of grown-ups who get this wrong. And I want you just to try it. What will it look like? It's filled to the brim. There's an ice cube floating there. What will it look like when the ice cube melts? You draw a picture and see if you get it right. And you'll meet a lot of people that don't get it right. And then another thing is really important right now is climate change. We have a whole chapter on climate change. And one of the big ideas in climate change, we have these hurricanes coming ashore in Louisiana right now, Louisiana, Texas, Alabama. So these storms are driven by the heat in the ocean. And the key, what makes the ocean what it is, what makes our world what it is, what makes sea creatures be able to live everywhere in the world is circulation. The ocean not only moves with the wind, but it moves up and down. It gets tumbled and spun up. And so we have a demonstration about salt water and fresh water and why salt water sinks in fresh water. And this is just a huge idea. So as sunlight causes water to evaporate off the surface of the sea, the salt that's in there stays in there. If you've ever had distilled water, people buy it at the grocery store to use in their irons for their clothes, for example, because it won't leave any residue, won't leave any salt. So as the water evaporates off the surface of the ocean, that part of the ocean gets denser and sinks. And this drives the currents in the ocean, what we call circulation. Circulation is the same word as circle, same root word. And there's a fabulous word. Thermohaline circulation means heat, salt circulation. Thermohaline. We have a demonstration about that.
That is a good one. And we have some amazing
I should say back to you, Greg, not to leave you hanging like that.
Oh, no, that's okay. No, and we have some wonderful graphics in the book just detailing all these things. And I know, when we were doing this, you were hyper focused on getting everything in those graphics right, like especially, which way the arrows turn.
The arrows, people, the arrows have to go the right way.
Yeah. And so what were you most proud of out of those pieces, or even just with the book in general? What are you most proud of?
Well, we have, I think, a very clear description of motion. Here's one of my favorite questions for people of all ages. What happens when something happens? What does it mean when you say something happens? It means something has changed, and change requires time. So apparently, by all accounts, Isaac Newton was the first guy to really write it down, to figure out what it meant when something is moving or not moving, and what it means to make something change direction. And we have a nice little thing in there, and Greg wrote a thing about when I played for the Seattle Seahawks, which I didn't do, but having to do with motions, a football team, having to do with motion. Then we recommend to everybody, if you've never done this, grow a plant. Grow a plant from a seed. And I have met uncountable number of people who've never actually grown a plant from an actual seed to actually see what actually happens. It really is amazing. And then I'm really proud, Greg, I'm really proud of the periodic table. Now,
I was waiting for you to talk about that because
yes.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen anyone go back and forth more in a book about.
So everybody, the periodic table of the elements is one of the most amazing discoveries ever made by anybody anywhere. And so Mendeleev, this guy, realized that everybody who's in the same column, every element in the same column, will have a relationship that enables you to predict the boiling and melting points, enables you to predict how this will react with that, how that will react with this and this. And it's just an amazing idea. And I claim that with all the screwing around that Greg was referring to, let's call it interactions with editors that Greg is talking about, that we have here information that you need, and we've left out a lot of the information that you very, very seldom need in middle and high school. And when chemists put all that extra information on there, I'm not sure they really use it. They look it up in the internet or on their phone, but the relationships are so important to our understanding of everything. I mean, we're all wearing clothes made of textiles. We all eat food. As you know, magician would say, it's all done with mirrors. Well, in chemistry, we say it's all done with molecules. And so I'm really proud of that. It's in the chemistry chapter, as you might imagine. And it's just what I've always wanted people to see, the relationships between these elements. Who's a metal? Who's a metalloid? What's a noble gas? What's a salt? And these things we spent some time with it.
Now, I don't want to imply, Bill, that the molecule joke you just told is a bad joke, but I will say that the book is also filled with really bad jokes. So really bad science jokes, good nerdy jokes.
Hilarious.
Now the other thing, and this approach I really liked as well. It's not about, this isn't a sort of didactic telling kids what to think about science kind of a book, and it's very much, you emphasized we need to give these kids inspiration and not marching orders, but problems for them to go tackle, and problems they could start thinking about now, action items, the things they could do in their own lives to make a difference right now. Why was that important to you?
Oh, it doesn't matter. No, it's really important. So you probably hear this, kids are the future. And the reason people say that is kids are the future. You all are going to be the people that are going to address climate change, feed. Right now, when I was a kid, when I was in, let's say, first grade, there were fewer than 3 billion people in the world. Well, now there's over 7, almost 8 billion people. So it's more than doubled. It's way more than doubled in my lifetime. And all those people are going to want something to eat. And all those people are going to, so there will be 9 billion people. There may be 10 billion people by, let's say, 2060, the year 2060. All those people are going to want something to eat. And all those people are going to want to be able to do this, to have access to electronic information around the world, to communicate with everybody on Earth. In order to pull that off, it's going to take you all, the young people, coming up with advancements, which will be a result of science. And so I want you to get out there and change the world. There's things about genetics, about DNA that we just do not understand. There's things about the cosmos that we just do not understand. When I was a kid, Greg, lasers were this new thing that didn't really have any purpose or application. They were just a laboratory curiosity. This business of coherent light, where the waves of light are all moving together. Since lasers were invented, coherent light's been observed in some, every now and then, once in a while, star. But before that, no one had ever heard of such thing, let alone harnessing it to do all the remarkable things we do with lasers now. I'm not just talking about laser pointers in the classroom. I mean, we use it in all sorts of industrial processes to manufacture all sorts of things. We use it for communication. Laser light has more waves per centimeter than visible light, than radio waves. And so you can pack more information in there. We send it down fiber optic cables. All this has happened in my lifetime. And I just get excited thinking about what's going to happen in your lifetime, like things that I literally cannot imagine yet.
Now we are, we're not literally at Comic-Con, but this is Comic-Con, and I'm something of a fan of superheroes. I have a couple of my favorites up here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Now, and actually, this guy Groot here, I'm kind of fond of him now, because after we worked on that botany chapter, this is the tree guy. I've never really thought about how important botany is to the world.
Oh,
but anyway,
you guys
kind of
food grown on farms, and that's figured out by botanists.
Yeah, we had a botanist quoted in the book. She basically said, "Why is botany important? Well, if we didn't have plants, we'd all be dead."
Yeah.
So what kind of, back to superheroes though, what kind of superhero does the world need right now?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't prep Bill for that question.
Well,
I'm just throwing it at him.
Somebody who can inspire people. Superman was invented sort of to address global problems having to do with wars in Europe. If we just had Superman, he could go over there and square everything away. So what we'd want is somebody that could bring us together instead of getting us at each other's throats, angry and so on. That's a tall order. But can we just talk again about me? I think
Yes, of course.
Everybody wants to be able to fly, right? That would be cool. That's a superhero thing. Unexplained, they just start flying around. Superman rather can do that. Batman can't. But the other thing I'd really like to have is a spider sense. Changing from DC to Marvel Comics.
Yeah.
Just sense danger. And when someone's trying to mess with you, like when you're trying to buy a used car or whatever, if you had a spider sense, you could have good judgment about that transaction.
Nice. I like it.
But, I just alluded to both Batman and Spider-Man. Batman, is just a good athlete who's a rich guy. And that's cool. That's really good.
Yeah.
But Spider-Man gets bitten by a radioactive spider. And this induces all sorts of amazing things. He can walk on walls. He's very strong. He's got the spider sense when there's danger. But this idea of getting bitten by something radioactive leading to all these remarkable changes, creepy, wonderful, who knows what kind of changes, goes back to when nuclear energy, neutrons, when the subatomic particles, protons and neutrons, electrons were discovered, and the mystery of them, the mystery of what goes on inside atoms led to this idea that a radioactive spider could make you into a superhero. And that's really something you just think about, all the stuff we don't know now. I don't think we have anything in our world right now that is that amazing, that hard to believe that one small change would lead to some sort of superpowers. However, what's going on in genetics right now, you all probably heard of DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, the pattern that's in all of our cells, most of our cells. What's going on in that research is really something. You all are going to live through just amazing changes in the way crops are grown. We'll make crops that can grow where it floods, that can grow where there's a drought, where it's really dry, that can take the wind, that can grow fast or slow, that can provide shade for other crops. There are going to be all these advances because of our ability that's emerging, just coming to be, where we could manipulate or change the DNA of plants. And then pretty soon, people are going to want to change the DNA of animals. And then after that, people are going to want to change the DNA of people. And you can say, well, that's unethical. Well, there could be a time when people think it's unethical or against natural law to not make those changes. Like, wouldn't it be cool to not have to wear glasses? Wouldn't it be cool if you didn't pull a muscle? Wouldn't it be cool? So you all are going to live through amazing changes. And I think a lot of them are going to come in genetics. And somehow for me, in my mind, that's tied to Spider-Man.
All right. I like it. Well, I'm going to go with swimming underwater and being Aquaman. So that's just my thing.
The Martian.
Yeah.
Mark Watney, is that the character's name? He's there on Mars, musing why Aquaman can talk to fish, but he can't talk to the marine mammals. He can't talk to whales and dolphins and stuff. Why is that, Greg?
I'll go ask him. That's a great question.
It's an Aquatic Man mystery. Now
we're gonna jump over to questions in a minute here, but I just had one more point. You were talking about, it would be great to have someone that could bring us all together on this planet. And earlier we were talking about, there's some great sections in the book on astrophysics and cosmology and the planets. That thing behind you there on the wall, we also have a chapter called "There's No Place Like Earth." And for me personally, talking to all these geophysicists and oceanographers and hydrologists, you really do come out of it with an incredible sense of how special and unique our world is, and then when you talk to astrobiologists as well and exoplanet hunters, I mean, it's a pretty amazing place. So if you don't mind just sort of talking a little bit about why you felt that was an important chapter and why you wanted to call it that, there's no place like Earth.
So everybody, since I was a kid, everybody's had this idea, let's go live on Mars. We've messed up the Earth. We'll just go to Mars. No. When you go to Mars, I mean, it'll be cool. It's going to be great. Somebody's going to go there, walk around, have a picnic, have a picnic or what have you. But it's not like Earth, everybody. There's hardly any water. I mean, there's hardly any water. There is no food. There are no fish in the Martian ocean. And the other thing that you will notice like that is you cannot breathe. There's nothing to breathe on Mars. The atmosphere is just not suited to us. It would kill us in a few moments. And by the way, when it comes to this picture, this is Hurricane Andrew right here. And this picture is from a satellite in 1992 when Hurricane Andrew was this Category 5 storm, which came ashore in the US and just made a mess. And when the Science Guy show went down there in 1994, everything was still knocked over and still a mess in a lot of areas of Florida. And so, although we have these hurricanes and we have this trouble, there's nowhere else to go. This is it. The other thing, when you look at this picture, notice that you're also seeing the atmosphere. Like, that's it. The atmosphere is held on by gravity, and it's so thin you hardly even see it in this picture. But all those clouds, all the white streaks and everything are clouds, water vapor turned to tiny liquid drops in the atmosphere. And it's just so thin. So whenever we dump all this stuff in the atmosphere, it doesn't go anywhere. It stays there and affects the climate of the whole planet. There is no place like Earth. So we've just got to take care of it. We've got to take care of it. And so what's happened, and nobody thought of this, when I was a kid, as I said, there were a lot fewer people on Earth than there are now. But what's happened with all these humans living all over the Earth, we are in charge. Humans are now running the show here on Earth. We didn't ask for the job. We didn't apply for it. It wasn't handed. It was just handed to us. You humans have taken over the Earth. Now you got to run things. So we have to pay close attention to what we do to the environment and with the environment so that we can all live here happily, comfortably, and better all the time.
All right, I like it. So before we're going to jump in there, we have some great questions already. I've been reading them here and getting ready. But I just wanted to remind everyone, subscribe to the New York Comic Con YouTube channel if you can. There's some awesome content. And also signed copies of our book, Bill Nye's Great Big World of Science, are available for pre-order at the Strand bookstore. Now, this first one here I kind of like. This is from Malaysia. And we have, I don't have names here, so I apologize, but there's a question here that says, what do you think, how do you explore science in the most fun way possible? Now, before you answer, Bill, I want to say there's a fantastic quote in our book from this guy. He's a biologist, and his name is Frank Fish. And his motto is, if you're not having fun, you're not doing science. And he's got a great quote in there about how he grew up and he wanted to study dinosaurs, and then he found out they were all dead, so he studies humpback whales instead. But anyway, so how do you make it fun?
What's more fun than science? Nothing, people. But just remember that sometimes when you're working hard, it's also fun. Sometimes when you're studying, trying to understand humpback whales and where they live and what they eat and how fast they swim and how deep they swim and how they talk to each other underwater, it takes a lot of work. Chasing whales all over the ocean, trying to create or build instruments that can take the cold and crushing pressures and the salt, the corrosive salt in the ocean. Making those things is difficult, but it's also fun. when you get it working. And this gets into something my father talked about all the time. It's easy to have initiative. To initiate something means to start it. Initial is the first, initiate, to get started. But it's really important to have finitiative. You have to finish, and then you have to work hard to finish, and that makes it, to me, that makes it fun.
Oh, I love it. That's a great one. Now, we also had a great question here. When did your love of science start, Bill?
Now, I've been asked this many times, Greg, my esteemed colleague, and I tell you, I don't remember. I was such a little kid. I thought it was cool from the very first memory I've ever had. And I've told this story a few times, but I remember I got stung by a bee. And I think we were playing Crazy Eights, you know, the card game.
Uh-huh.
And I was 3.5, 4 years old. And this was very troubling. I got stung on the thigh by a bee, and it really hurt. And I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what had happened. I started crying. I was a kid, everybody. I started crying. And my mother put ammonia on it, on my sting. And you might not know what ammonia is, but I'll say, yes, you do. It's the smell in Windex or window cleaner. And when you look at the periodic table, it's a base. It is nitrogen and hydrogen. And anyway, it felt better. Somehow the ammonia makes the sting molecule, the venom, the bee sting fall apart, makes that molecule fall apart. There's a word, denatures it. And then my brother, who had a really scary and cool chemistry set back when they were dangerous, made ammonia in my hand. Like he made a compound that was ammonia in my hand. I thought that is amazing, even though the bee sting hurt.
Right.
I just thought that was amazing. And then I spent a lot of time over a couple summers watching bees. This is in the city of Washington, D.C., in the city limits of Washington, D.C., watching bees. And they are amazing. And then I ended up working at Boeing on airplanes and then later on business jets, because I just think flying is just cool. And chemistry is cool. And biology, it's all cool. And that's what I don't remember when I first fell in love with science. But as Carl Sagan said, Carl's famous astronomer, when you're in love, you want to tell the world. So that's what we're doing with this book. We're telling the world.
That's great. How about we have another one here? When did you start wanting to teach the world about science? When did you want to become a science communicator?
Well, sir.
Thank you for that question, Greg.
So I always thought, you know, when you're in love, you want to tell the world. And my old physics teacher had me teach algebra in summer school a couple times. Now, everybody, if young people are watching and you're struggling with algebra, okay, I'm sorry, man, woman, you have to practice. There's no way around it. When it comes to algebra, you have to practice. But when you get it, it's so exciting. That's the kind of mathematics or math that enables you to predict the future. When you get algebra, when you understand these relationships between numbers, it helps you think abstractly about all kinds of things. So anyway, I was doing that and that was fun. But then I went to mechanical engineering school because I like bicycles and airplanes, and that's mechanical engineering. All right. And then the United States took what I thought was a turn for the worse. We started making these two cars, the Ford Pinto and the Chevy Vega. And these were cars that were so bad, they'd like fall apart while you were looking at them. They would rust while you were looking at them. There were these infamous lawsuits where people, you rear end the Ford Pinto would burst into flames and all this stuff. All right. So I got discouraged. It was decided to take solar panels off the roof of the White House. This is in 1980, you guys. And I got concerned about the future of the United States. And so I wanted to do a show that would get young people excited about science so that we would not make these, what I thought, silly mistakes in the future. We would do the right thing as time went on. And so people who watch the Science Guy show are now out in the workforce. So I want you all to get it done. I want you guys to fix everything, because people like me are just, we're older now, man. But anyway, this book is for people who didn't watch the show in the 1990s. There's people who will be watching the show now, elementary school, middle school. And I think there's enough in there, even if you're in elementary school, there's enough explanation of sort of bigger ideas that you'll be able to figure it out or get started on figuring things out.
The kids still watch it, though. I mean, my kids watch the show.
I know. There's like a third generation of people watching the show. I mean, when we made it, we made the Science Guy show in a brick warehouse in Seattle. The building's still there, but right next to it was a building called the Kingdome, which was an indoor stadium. And it was just not good for sports. And eventually we exploded it, crashed it down, and built two new stadiums. But the old brick building is still there. And it was, just a few dozen people messing around. And I'm just delighted you all watched the show. Thank you.
Now, this is a difficult and very important question. What was it like to be on Dancing with the Stars?
Oh, it was cool. But I put a lot of pressure on myself to try to do a good job. And maybe that's what it was. But anyway, I got injured, everybody. I tore my what's called quadriceps tendon. Your quadriceps are the muscles on top of the upper part of your leg, the thick part of your leg. And in one kind of big dance step, I just tore it. I mean, oh, wow, did that hurt? And I had to get off the show, but it was cool. And if you ever get a chance to be on Dancing with the Stars, I say do it. It's very exciting. They just have so many very, very skilled people who make television, people who make those crazy costumes, people who edit the music. What I still love about television, and Dancing with the Stars was an extraordinary television experience. What I still love about it, despite all the electronics, all the technology in producing television, all the lights and everything, it's still handmade. It's still people, what I call the black collar workers. People who come to work, they wear black clothes so the light doesn't reflect off their clothing, and they work 12, 14, 18 hours a day, and they produce these spectacular images and sounds, and it's really exciting to be part of that. That's what I still love about television. It's handmade storytelling.
That's neat. Now we have another question here, getting back to science, of course. And this one, it's for you, but I'm going to answer a piece of it really quickly anyway. You
should be answering these questions.
Yes. Well, what's one facet or one piece of science or theme that you wish was taught more to children in schools? And I know my kids have had great science teachers, but I know that. Well, what's fun is, kids are open to big, huge, enormous ideas. They want to talk about the Big Bang and black holes and giant ideas in science. And so sometimes I wish they went, we went bigger in schools a little bit. But that's not a knock on science education at all.
Right, of course. No.
But how about you? What do you think?
What's I like people.
What's missing? What would you like to, to see stressed a little bit more?
Evolution, the idea of evolution. It is the most important idea, or let's call it the fundamental idea in all of life science, in all of biology. And the two guys that discovered it, you hear a lot about Charles Darwin, but the other guy was Alfred Russel Wallace, and they wrote a paper together. But Wallace was on the other side of the world when Darwin presented his paper to the Royal Academy, whatever the heck, in Britain. And Darwin wrote the famous book, Origin,
Jack and the Geniuses.
Origin of Species. And so his name is associated with the idea of evolution pretty readily. But it explains so much of what goes on in nature and how you and I got here. And right now, everybody's running in circles screaming about racism, about how we all, or many of us, perceive other people as being different from us, or your family, or your tribe, or your city, or whatever it is. But we can prove to anybody that humans are all one species. We are all the same, no matter your eye color, the color of the skin on the back of your hand. It's all the same. We're all one species. And evolution can prove this. Through the process of evolution, we can prove this. And as I say, some people are very troubled by this, that if we're all one species, well, that means we all came from the same something or other. That's right. Every organism out there that we can find has DNA, everything, or every organism we can find. And so Darwin and Wallace just thought about it and reasoned that we all must have a common ancestor. There must be some form of life 3.7 billion years ago, that we are all descended from. And, as we have it in the book, I just tell everybody, just try to take a little while to understand what a billion is. I mean, it's really big. If you want to count to 1,000, you can do it in 20 minutes. You want to count to a million, if you could stay up all night without sleeping, it would take you 11 days. If you want to count to 1 billion, it takes you 31 years and 7 months. That's if you didn't sleep or stop or anything else. To get to 3.7 billion takes you 127 years to count to 1 billion, to 3.7 billion. And that is the key to evolution, is time, and more time. And after that, there's time and even more time. And I just wish this idea were presented to people, because it affects how we raise crops. It affects how we do medicine. It affects how we interact with each other, and it affects how we vote, how we treat each other, what sort of government we want. It's all in there when you start to think about evolution.
And we're running out of time here, but it's all in the book as well. I love that section. It's an absolutely fabulous piece of it. But again, it's Bill Nye's Great Big World of Science. I would love it if everyone can stick around for the next panel and check out the book. It's really fun. It's packed with information. It's got Bill Nye all over the place.
It's got Greg Mone. It's got Greg Mone.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us, and we hope you go out and get the book, and we hope you keep learning about science, kids and adults too.
Yeah. Be safe out there, everybody.